Hey everyone, welcome. If you're gearing up for the UPSC Psychology Optional paper, you already know that methods of inquiry is way more than just another chapter. It's really the foundation of the entire subject. Get this right, and you're building a seriously strong base for some high scores. Today, we're going to craft the ultimate strategic blueprint to help you absolutely master it. So, let's get started. Okay, so this isn't just some abstract theory. This is a real 10-marker from the 2017 Civil Services exam. And what's the most important word in that question? You guessed it, scientific. Your ability to evaluate that claim really hinges on one thing, understanding how psychology works as a science, and that's exactly what we're going to break down for you today.
You see, to answer questions like the one we just saw, you need a scientific mindset. It's not about just memorizing and listing facts. It's about appreciating the systematic, evidence-based process that psychologists use to understand the human mind. So our goal here is to give you that exact framework, so you can analyze, critique, and write with real authority.
All right, here's the game plan for today. We'll kick things off by understanding why psychologists even need a scientific inquiry in the first place. Then, we'll open up the psychologist's toolkit to see what methods they're working with. We're going to take a really close look at the super powerful experimental method, see how research unfolds step by step, and finally, we'll tie it all together to understand its real-world impact and the ethical lines that we must never, ever cross.
So first things first, why all the fuss? Why the strict methods? Why can't psychologists just go with their gut feeling or common sense? Well, it's because scientific psychology is trying to achieve 5 very specific, very ambitious goals. It always starts with description. Simply, what is going on? Just carefully watching and documenting behavior. From there, we can move to prediction. Can we figure out when it's going to happen again? But the real prize, you could say the holy grail of research, is explanation. Why is it happening? Once we understand the why, we gain the power to control or influence that behavior, hopefully for the better. And all of this leads to the ultimate goal, right? Application. Using all this scientific knowledge to improve people's lives and solve real problems in society. Okay, so to hit those 5 goals, a psychologist can't just use one tool for every single job. Think of it like this. They've got a whole toolkit of research methods, and each one has its own strengths and its own weaknesses. Let's open up that toolkit and check out the core methods, taken straight from your UPSC syllabus.
The most fundamental tool is the observational method. This is really the bread and butter of description. Just imagine a researcher, maybe on a playground, just watching kids play without getting involved. The goal here is to capture behavior as it genuinely happens in the real world.
But what if you need to know what thousands of people think about a new policy? You can't possibly observe all of them. That's where survey research comes into play. By using tools like questionnaires or interviews, it's like taking a snapshot of what people are thinking or doing, their attitudes, their opinions, their beliefs, across a huge population. All right, now we're moving past just describing things and into the world of prediction. Correlational research basically asks, do these two things tend to go together? For example, as your study hours increase, do your exam scores also tend to increase? But, and I really want you to remember this is maybe the single most important rule in this whole chapter. Correlation is not causation. It shows us there's a relationship, but it absolutely does not tell us why.
Sometimes, to really get a handle on a complex issue, you have to go deep instead of wide. And that's where the case study comes in. It's like a psychological microscope, focusing with incredible intensity on one person or one group or one event. It can give you these amazingly rich, detailed insights that those broader methods might just miss, especially for rare or unique situations.
And now for the big one, the gold standard for figuring out cause and effect, the experimental method. This is the only tool in the entire kit that lets a researcher say with confidence, the variable A causes a change in variable B. It's the engine that drives the goal of explanation. And believe me, this is a huge topic for the UPSC exam. Okay, let's put it all together in a quick comparison. This table makes the trade-offs pretty clear. Observation gives you that real-world flavor, but you might have observer bias. Seeing what you expect to see. Surveys can get you massive amounts of data, but you have to worry about people not answering truthfully. Correlation is fantastic for prediction, but again, it can't prove a cause. And the experiment, our powerhouse for causality, can sometimes feel so controlled that it's a bit artificial. The key takeaway here is the right tool always depends on the question you're trying to answer. Because this method is so powerful at finding cause and effect, UPSC really focuses on it. So let's really zoom in here and unpack its key parts. Trust me, this is a high-yield area you really, really need to know inside and out.
The huge difference between a true experimental design and pretty much everything else, like surveys or observations, really just comes down to one key word: manipulation. In a true experiment, the researcher is actively changing or manipulating something, what we call the independent variable. They use a control group for comparison, and, this is key, they randomly assign people to the groups. It's the super strict control that lets a researcher say, yes, this caused that. Non-experimental designs just measure things as they are, which is valuable, but it makes it very, very hard to claim causality.
But, what happens when you can't randomly assign people to groups? I mean, you can't ethically assign people to a smoking group just to study health problems, right? That's exactly where the quasi-experimental design steps in. It's kind of a practical compromise. It uses groups that already exist to try and get as close as possible to the rigor of a true experiment.
Okay, so all these methods we've been talking about, they don't just happen in isolation. They're all part of a larger, very disciplined process. A good research study isn't just a random shot in the dark. It's a very structured journey with a clear sequence of steps that take you from a question all the way to a final conclusion. Let's walk through that journey.
So, just like your syllabus lays out, it all starts with finding a problem and creating a clear, testable hypothesis. Then you choose your research design and figure out who your participants will be. After you collect the data, you get to the analysis. Here, researchers use statistical tools. You'll see names like t-test, which compares two groups, or ANOVA, which can compare several, to see if their results are actually meaningful or if they just happened by chance. Finally, everything gets written up in a formal report to be shared with and even scrutinized by the whole scientific community.
All right, so we've looked at the why, the what, and the how of psychological research. But what's the big picture here? What's the point of it all? Well, these methods are not just some dry academic exercises. They are incredibly powerful tools that have profound, real-world consequences. Which brings us to the absolutely crucial topics of application and ethics. And look at this, another direct question from a past exam, this time from 2016. You see, UPSC is always going to test your ability to connect the dots between theory and the real world. The methods we've just discussed are precisely how psychology creates the reliable knowledge we need to tackle huge societal issues, everything from mental health stigma to improving how we teach our kids.
This quote right here, it really sums up the entire philosophy. The whole point of this difficult, careful process isn't just about getting published in some journal. It's about making a tangible, positive difference. Whether that's designing therapies that actually work, creating safer workplaces, or promoting better public health, the application is the ultimate proof that the science matters.
And of course, because we're dealing with real human beings here, everything is governed by a super strict code of ethics. People have to participate voluntarily. They need to give informed consent, which means they know what they're signing up for. Their personal data has to be kept confidential, and they must be protected from any harm. And let me be clear, these are not just suggestions. They are absolute non-negotiable rules of the road. So I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. We've seen that psychologists have some incredibly powerful tools to describe, predict, explain, and even influence how people behave. With that kind of power comes an immense responsibility. So think about this for a moment. What do you think is the single most important ethical line that a psychologist must never, ever cross? Because figuring that out is every bit as important as knowing which research method to use. Thank you for joining this explainer.